Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ongoing Mastery, Presenting and Speaking, the podcast, and now the video series, and also interviews. And as always, because it's my damn show, I get to bring on my damn friends. So I've got Jay Schuh, who is just brilliant and a hug on two legs and unbelievably sweet and kind. And I would like to explain your history, but I don't think I have enough words. So do you think you could tell people about what it is you've done in your short life so far?
Sure. I, Gosh, it's kind of hard when you talk about yourself. You're like, yeah, I've done a lot. But I have done a lot. As a kid, I always had a lot of interest. I went to school for advertising, marketing, psychology, and then I got out of school and didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And so I waited tables, and
Okay.
then I had a conversation. One of the best conversations I've ever had in my life was probably with my wife, because I told her, I said, I can do all these things. I think I could be a voice actor. I could be an actor. I could be an artist. I just don't know what I want to do. And she said, I really don't care what you do. I just pick one thing and just do that thing. And I said,
Yep.
that's really good advice. So what I did is I picked animation. And so I back then in the dark ages, there were the things called phone books. And I went to those because internet was still in its stage. And
Yep.
I just went from looking for studios to get. And long story short, I wound up finally eventually getting an internship with an animation company. That's how I got my start. And ever since that, I've done animation, cartoons, design, illustration,
Mhm.
writing, directing, producing, programming. Now I'm a user experience strategist, design strategist, and I teach design thinking at SMU and Collin College here in town. So I've had this really broad,
Yep.
creative history that now where I am in my life, one things I want to do is kind of share that a little bit, at least share some of the things I've learned. I've done video games that have been seen by millions of people, and I have an IMDb, no major feature films that anybody's seen, but I'm still on there.
Yeah.
And so
Oh,
it's,
yeah.
I
And
know
a
some
book
stuff. So
and books, both.
yeah, yeah. I have a book. It's called Brilliance.
Hmm.
And yeah. You and I were talking about it a little earlier, and you know how sometimes creative people can try to be too creative.
Hmm.
Um, that's kind of what happened. If you are into fonts, everybody knows that there's one font you should never use ever,
And
and
I'm
that is
laughing my
Comic
butt off right
Sans,
now.
right?
Yes.
Yeah,
And what is
and
the
so
title font
I
of your
said
book, Jay?
it's literally the title font on my book, and I know this, but I used it on purpose. I said
Hmm.
I am going to be so rebellious that I'm going to use the font that every creative person on the planet tells you
Hates.
not to use. Yet hates, they just hate it, right? And so I said, how clever am I that I'm going to be this ultra rebel to use that on the cover of my book? And that was a huge fail. And what I failed to consider was that people who don't know me know that I know that about Comic Sans. So any designer that looks at this book and says, it's a book on creativity by a guy who doesn't know you're not supposed to use Comic Sans. So that was probably my biggest, design fail I ever did. Now, one time I explained it to another designer, and she goes, now that you've explained it, that's
Hmm.
cool, and I'll buy a copy. But trying to
Uh-huh.
explain that to every person who wants to buy your book, probably
And,
not the best thing.
and
So
it's also a damn clever book.
oh,
I mean, it
thanks.
really is. It's a damn clever book. And you get into the mind of a creative person through the framework of a college student, taking
Yeah.
basically writing blog posts. And you introduce people to how creatives think without in any way talking down to them or in any way making it alien. How the
Right.
hell did you come up with that?
So, well, I'll say this: what we did a few attempts. My co-author Bennett Litwin and I said he started putting together. We read all these amazing books. We said, this is awesome. How can we share this information with people? And we synthesized everything. And when we started to write it, it sounded a lot like a textbook. And I said, creatives, that's not exactly the best approach with a lot of creatives, is making it sound like a textbook. And so we said, how might we tell this in a story that maybe creatives could get into and relate to? And since I teach at the college level, and a lot of my students and some of the people I've mentored, especially the last few years, have been gals, I said, well, let's just take a representation of some of the folks I've helped over the last few years, which happen to be some gals, and say, let's make them the central character. And that's maybe a little bit of a fail, because, here's our central character as a gal, and who are the authors? Two dudes, old dudes, right? So, that's another thing that, we're kind of like, okay.
Uh,
But I think, go ahead.
I'm going to stop you right there, because
Okay.
I've known you for a really long time, and you
Yeah.
have gotten into my head and spoken my brain better than I can.
Thank you.
What, 25 times by now? Like, when I've been like, Jay, and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
what about this? And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah. So it doesn't surprise me that you could write from the perspective of somebody else, because you can put yourself into other people's heads better than most anybody I've seen. I mean, you're really
Thank
good
you.
at getting into other people's
Thank you.
shoes. So,
Well, and that's kind of why I transitioned over to user experience, is because the first thing about design thinking or user experience is all about empathy,
yeah.
right? It's about considering who you're talking to, considering the pain points of the person you're trying to solve for, and really try to solve for them. And that's the reason we wrote the book. Actually, my students asked me to write the book. I kept telling these stories in class, and my students said, when are you going to put all these stories together? When are you going to put these thoughts together in a book so that you can share it? So we wrote the book a few years ago. It took me forever. I'll have to admit that imposter syndrome and perfectionism is something that, even though I've done all these things, it
Yep.
really still is a part of, if you're a creative, you're going to experience it at some point in your life. And I definitely did. It
I
probably took a year longer to get the book finished, because I just, even simple things like, are people going to like my illustrations? Are people going to understand why all the illustrations aren't consistent? And I took different styles. I took a lot of risk with the book, and
hmm
some things I thought we did really, really well. And there's a few things like the cover that I probably should have rethought. But I still think the book is valuable. I think there's still good advice, and eventually, Ben and I have talked about doing another book aimed at creatives that will incorporate some of the stuff I've learned, and both of us have learned, because Bennett has gone on and done his own feature film. He was a producer on his own feature film called Frackers, and so he got that done. Of course, it launched right during the middle of COVID, when nobody was going
Of
to
course it
movies.
did.
So
Of
yeah,
course.
that timing could have been better there too. But that's the way
Yeah.
things pan out.
So this podcast is ongoing mastery of presenting and speaking. And
Right.
ongoing mastery is kind of your jam. Like, that's built
Yeah.
into your DNA, which is
Yes.
one of the reasons why I think, where did you and I meet? Was it at Max?
I think I think we met at Max, and I
Okay.
think what resonated with both of us, I think, is because a lot of people who are in the Adobe program, who love Adobe products, who get into the community, at their heart, it's about helping people. At their heart,
Yeah.
it's about helping creatives be as creative as they can be. And that's really what I've discovered is my life purpose, why I've been teaching
hmm
for next year will be 22 years. And I think that's where we resonated. You and I
Yeah.
both love, part of our mission and purpose is helping other creatives achieve what they want to achieve, and help them get to that next level in their own success.
Yeah. And that, by the way, that's for the people on the video and the people who are listening. That's Adobe Max. And Adobe Max is like Disneyland for creatives if they use Adobe products. It's just that's it. It's all the things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean I really appreciate that you sent me the book. It's great. I do crack up at the cover, and I almost wish it could be released with a banner that goes, "Yes, we know."
Misnomer. Yes,
No,
we
no.
know it's
Yes, we
Comic
know it's
Sans.
Comic Sans. We did it on purpose. Read the fucking book. Which I admit is probably not the best marketing, which is why I am not a marketing person. But I would totally do that. I would put a nice big banner right across it and be like, seriously, we know what we're talking about. We do.
Yeah,
Um,
I may do a commercial where I point it out, so maybe people that can get beyond the cover. Of course they say the cover is why people buy books. So if I was going to fail, that's probably the worst place I could have failed. But still, we people have gotten the book. Thank
People
goodness, and
have.
thank you. If you are one of the people that has bought our book, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Yeah. So, and I'm laughing because before we got on the recording, I told you that my first ever TEDx dropped 2 days ago, and I'm in the position right now of sharing it. And the default still image on it is the least attractive image of me, bar none, in my entire 53 years on this earth. And I'm looking at it to the point where my husband called me, and he's traveling, and he said, "Honey, can they do something about that?" And I'm like, "Not without losing the people who've already signed up, losing
Yeah,
the metrics." And he goes, "Oh, that's a shame."
yeah.
It's like, yeah. So I'm just gonna go with I'll look better in person. Yay.
Yeah, see, again, as I was telling you, the bar is low. So now, anytime anybody sees you, they go, "You look amazing! Oh my
Thank God.
gosh! I saw
Yeah.
your picture, but in person, you look
You you
fantastic."
you look so much
So
better. You're
yeah,
practically a
mhm,
model. Yeah, exactly.
that's it.
It's like, and I'm promoting the hell out of it. But what's
Nice.
funny is that I was just in conversation with my friend Kelly, who works with me, not 15 minutes before this call, and she
Okay.
said, "Why is it not up on the front page of your website?" And I said, "Oh, it doesn't really fit, and narratively, I put it on the speaking page, but." And she looked at me. She goes, "You're full of it. You know why it's not up there." And I'm
That's right.
like, "I can't stand to have it up there because it's so ugly." And she went, "Well, sucks to be you." Put it up. And I'm like, "Yes, ma'am."
Yeah. No,
So
I
I will.
I kind of agree. And I will say, if your audience is a creative, and if you are like me, that sometimes you have a hard time um, internally thinking, well, what are people going to say? What are
Yeah,
people going to think? And really, we constrain ourselves a lot as creatives sometimes because we put self limitations on some of our ideas because we don't want people to think of us a particular way, or we don't want people to misunderstand us, right? I mean, just like the cover of my book, if people
yeah,
didn't get, I was purposely doing it to
yeah.
say, take risks, do things that you're not supposed to do, and it can backfire, right? It can, like I think it did a little bit in my case, but it makes for a great story now because now when people
Yes.
hear it, they go, "Oh, so you
Yeah.
did know you're not supposed to use Comic Sans." I'm like, exactly.
Exactly.
And my book is about beginners who don't know what they're doing. And the whole book is about the journey, so there's meta layers within the reason I did things, right? When you're starting
Yes.
off, you don't know what you're doing. So you might
Hmm.
use Comic Sans if you were doing this. So they don't get that it was part of the hero's journey. But
Yep.
then also it's about taking a risk because I do know what I'm doing. But I said, how cool would it be to be meta to say, use the font that nobody tells you
Use the
to
font.
use?
Everybody that
Right.
says never use this.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're using
Everybody
it.
says, that, don't use it. So, anyways, yeah.
So what would you advise people if they're struggling with ongoing mastery in their work
Yeah.
and trying to especially get out of their own way? Like I struggle with it, you some struggle with it, we
Yeah.
all do.
Sure.
What is a good technique to help you kind of get out of that? What would you suggest?
So I think there's a story that I read, and the story is there was a guy who was really into being a Buddhist, and he traveled all this way to this Buddhist master, and he had read all the books, and he was a PhD and knew everything about Buddhist history, Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist everything, right? So he gets to meet this guy, and the guy says, "Hey, how you doing?" And guy starts talking. "Oh my gosh, I'm here. Finally, it's so cool. Let me tell you all the things I know." And the guy goes, "Do you want some tea?" I said, "Well, sure." So he starts pouring the tea, and he's talking, still talking. And then the guy keeps pouring, and it's overflowing the teacup. And he goes, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, you're overflowing the teacup." And he goes, "You are the teacup. You are so full of everything you know that there's no room for anything else." And the lesson there is always try to have the mind of a beginner. Always try to have that mindset, because at the beginning of anything, no matter what, if it's drawing, coloring with crayons, or, trying to use Photoshop for the first time, when you do those things, you are not going to know what you're doing, and you're going to look a little foolish because you can't find something, or it's not going to be what's inside your head. It's going to take some time. Embrace the child, embrace the beginner philosophy, because if you do that, you're not going to take yourself as seriously, and you're actually going to learn better, right? You actually learn better, because we tend to measure the new things we're trying to learn based on our mastery of what we already know. And we don't want to look foolish in front of other people, and we don't want to look foolish to ourselves. And we get frustrated when we can't learn things as fast as we think we should be able to learn things. So embrace that beginner mindset, because then just have fun. Say, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm totally making this clay pot into some garbled clay thing that doesn't even resemble what was in my mind's eye, but that's okay, because I'm learning how to not do things. And I can't tell you how many times I've been playing in Photoshop or another software, when I mess up and I do something, I go, whoa, that's totally not what I wanted, but that's cool. And then later on, you go back and you go, I totally know where I can use that thing that I messed up on in a really cool way to make this client happy. And so those happy accidents, those messing around, not know where you're doing, is really where a lot of the most learning takes place. And that's why they say it's never really failing if you're learning, because and we just don't like to fail. So we prevent ourselves from putting ourselves in situations where we might fail or can fail, which means that comfort zone that we block ourselves in becomes our own creative limitations for the work that's possible, that for us to create, that's within us. We close ourselves down by what people think, or not wanting to look foolish or make mistakes. And I think the best creatives just go beyond and risk it and be brave and just try something new, and don't worry about what people think, because most people, and I read this too, when you die, most people, it's kind of dark, but most people are going to forget about you within a year. I mean, your close friends and family are going to remember you, and they'll think about you. But most people you kind of knew as acquaintances and stuff, they're not going to think about you after a year. So why are you so worried about what those people think? Right? Do your stuff while you're here, and go beyond, and stop worrying about what people think, because they're not really going to care about you that long after you're gone. So while you're here, just do it anyways. It's a hard thing it's easy to say and hard to do, because we're so worried about what strangers think about it. Even people we don't like. I mean, I've seen that. There are people I don't like, or don't like me, and I worry about what they think. And I'm sitting here going, why do I do that? Why can't I just be creative and just do my thing? And if they don't like it, well, they already don't like me. So what am I worried about?
Yep. I love it, because that's exactly it. I find myself kind of trapped by the opinions of people I haven't even met yet.
Right.
Like people on the internet that I
That's
know I'm
right.
going to get trolled, because I'm
Sure.
a person in public, in a public space. I'm on the internet. I'm now putting
That's right.
myself out there. Therefore, it's going to
Yep.
happen. And part of me is like, but I
Yeah.
don't want to get yelled at. And yet it's like,
Right.
but would you ever talk to that person? No. So why are you listening to them? Why are you giving them power?
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
That's right. That's it. When we worry about what other people think, we give them control of us. And it's what's really interesting is when you start to shift, when you start to not worry about what other people think, or you say,
Hmm.
I just really don't care what you think. I'm doing my own thing. People get jealous because they wish they could be that way. They wish they would be confident enough to not care. And those are the trolls. Really, really,
Yeah.
trolls are a lot of times people who are really insecure. They're not doing what they want to do in their life. They're not achieving their dreams. So what they do is they look towards other people who are trying to get stuff done and critique them.
Yeah.
And I feel sorry for them, because some of them are really unhappy people that have nothing better to do than critique people that are actually trying to get stuff done. I
Yeah.
wish for them that they would find their passion, their joy, and start doing their own thing. That's what I would wish for them, instead of throwing negativity into the world. And for people who are really trying and making an effort, just trying to make those people feel bad because it gives them some sort of sadistic joy. I don't
Yeah.
understand that, but
Yep.
no.
Exactly. Exactly. I know that you've actually got a really tight window, so I'm only going to
Yep.
keep you another minute. But where can people find you? Like, if they want to know more about the magic that is Jay, where is the
Yeah.
magic that is Jay found?
So my website got hacked by Russians over COVID, and
Oh,
and I,
damn
I
it!
still have not taken the time to get that going. So that's
All
on
right.
my 2023
All
agenda.
right. Are you on Insta?
The best way to find me is just do a LinkedIn.
Okay.
So that's the best way to connect with me. You
Okay.
can get our book if you search really hard on Amazon.
It's up
So
there.
maybe you can send out the link, all right,
I
and
will
let
post
people
the link.
know.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll give you a kind of a cool. I am working on my first fiction novel with a friend of mine, Karen Godardy, and
Cool.
we're through our second pass. The first pass, we got beta readers. It's okay, but the second pass is amazing. We're biased, but we're loving it. And so that will come out
Yes.
in 2023. So stay tuned on that. It's going to be fantastic. It's a
Oh,
sci-fi story about a bunch of kids who get trapped in a dimension. And both Karen and I think people are really going to love it. So stay tuned for that.
fantastic.
So that's something new.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, as always, I just love your take on creativity and energy and positivity, and
Thank
you are
you.
just naturally a mentor to pretty much everybody that you
Well,
meet, which is a gift, and I appreciate it.
thank
And
you.
I really wish we lived in the same damn state. I do. So
Yeah, that'd be nice.
at some point, we'll be in the same state, and we'll have dinner, and it'll be awesome. And other than that, I will see you at some point. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you found value, because I think this is a positive, joyful conversation to have.
Yeah.
And as always, find us on Ongoing Mastery, Presenting and Speaking, on LinkedIn, the group. That's where we're kind of gathering everybody together, and we'll start dropping information. And other than that, have a great coming up Turkey, Turkey Coma
Turkey
Day.
Day, yes, yeah,
Turkey
yeah.
Day. Everybody have tryptophan coma,
Thanksgiving, whatever you want to call it.
whatever you want to
And
call it.
if you're from a country that doesn't celebrate Thanksgiving, enjoy the upcoming holiday seasons, right?
Yes.
And just spend time with friends and family, because that's really,
Perfect.
at the end of it, that's the most important thing to do.
As it is. All right. Thank you so much for being on here. I
Thank
really
you for
appreciate
being
it.
my friend. Thank you for inviting me.
All right. And we'll see everybody next time. Have a good one.